Wait a
Well, I
minute.
did.
Okay. We are live.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 284, amendment in the nature of a substitute, proposed by the Senate Committee on Privileges and Election on January the 9th, 2019. Section 1 reads, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Section 2. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Section 3. This amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification, and be it resolved further that the clerk of the Senate transmit certified copies of this joint resolution to the President of the United States, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the President of the United States Senate, the members of the Virginia Congressional Delegation, and the Archivist of the United States at the National Archives and Records Administration of the United States.
Thank you very much, Donna Sy. Good job. Well, before we started videotaping, we've had several women in here at this meeting have shared their views on this. And the first one I'd like to call on is Judith McNeil from Boston, Massachusetts. And Judith, Quincy, Mass. I'm sorry. If you would please share with the audience your thoughts on this.
I have all the rights I need. I don't see why I
Could
need
you
to.
speak up, Judith, please?
I have all the rights I need now. I don't see the point of wasting time on an equal rights amendment.
Okay. Okay. Next is Nora Firestone. Nora, would you stand up, please, and come a little bit closer
Okay.
so I can pick the sound. Pick up the sound.
I would, in general, I would agree. I was just writing down notes for later, but I would say opponents say that there are no existing amendments that don't already recognize and enforce equal rights, but that perhaps pushing this through would force mandates such as Catholic churches would have to allow women to become priests. Well, they don't want to do that. Boys' schools would have to accept women. Girls would have the right to play on boys' football teams, things like that. So I completely agree, and I've interviewed former delegate Robert Marshall, who writes about this and speaks about this extensively and is a staunch opponent of having this pushed through. I've interviewed him twice on my radio show, and if you'd like, Robert, if you want, I'll put the link to the Facebook live stream of that radio show
Absolutely.
on this thing, so you can hear that alternative view from a true expert, because I'm just a messenger. So, thanks.
Teresa Langland. Teresa, could you come forward because you need to pick up the sound of your voice.
I'd just like to say that the interpretation of men is, if you look it up in the dictionary, it does include men and women. There's no need to change our Bill of Rights. It's already there. It was just maybe a definition of what men means. That's it.
Okay. And Leslie Jones.
The only thing I could think of is that the statute of limitations has discontinued the one that they initiated early on. If they want to do it again, I think 2 of the states have rescinded, and they should start a new one if they want to do it again.
Very good points. Very good points, Leslie. That everybody hadn't thought of. Well, this whole issue, when I sent this announcement out, I happened to include a little bit about the military, and because we have so many folks in here that have in fact served in the military, and we welcome retired Navy Captain Kenny Golden, who arrived fashionably late this morning, but so we can start.
Somebody has to take our position.
Yeah, so if you'd like, we can start the meeting all over with a pledge on. No, the issue here is women in the military, but more importantly, under equal rights, women in combat. And I'm not talking about pilots, I'm talking about on the ground, in firefight situations, in a jungle, wherever it happens to be. What is the military going to do about that? And your thoughts? Anybody's thoughts?
I think that one of the things they said would happen was that, they would have to register for, what's it called, the draft, and be conscripted if there was an official war that was started by the United States.
Well, as you know, we've done away with the draft.
Well,
And so, but if women want to just join the military, the question is, would they be applicable to serve in combat zones on the ground?
You're already serving combat zones.
I was gonna say, thought so.
Could you please repeat that? While Diana Howard, who's
Already serving combat zones.
Diane's really getting choked up about this.
That's right.
I would say that it should be permitted if a woman can meet the physical and all physical standards, including endurance and strength and everything permitted, not mandated, not a draft. I'm 5'2" and 103 pounds. Are you kidding? The men out there in combat would have to protect me. I would not be any advantage to them. So if we're talking draft, go ahead and draft me and excuse my language, but piss all the men off who are going to have to protect me. You know, I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I think, sure, it should be permitted if women can meet all the standards that they need to, and they want to do that. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. So
Do they give men the same right if
Right.
they want to
Right,
die
right,
for their
right, right.
country?
Well,
yes. So
that's a good point.
let me ask you a question,
They do now.
What do you feel?
Diana. If you went back to when you first went to the Navy, and you decided instead you wanted to go in the Marine Corps, you went to Parris Island, you wanted to have direct parallel training with the men, not separate and lower standards, would that be acceptable with you? And then let's say it's 1971. You get through Parris Island, you get through Camp Lejeune advanced infantry training, and you get shipped to Vietnam. And you are now in the jungle with a platoon, and you come under attack, and you're overwhelmed. There's like 40 of you, and 300 or 400 are North Vietnamese. And all of a sudden, you have to go to the bathroom. What are you going to do in that regard? Let's say that you have to either urinate or defecate, and everybody else with you are men. They're going to do the same thing. You're going to have any problems with doing that right next to a fellow warrior?
Okay, we're all different. When I grew up, women did not go to war. We were not on ships or anything like that, right? We were not drafted. So if women went to war at the time I was growing up, I probably would not have gone into the military, okay? But if women want to do that, we have a voluntary service now. So if we have an equal rights and we want to go to war and stuff like that, we have women that are in that situation now. They are not on the front lines in foxholes or anything. We're not doing that. But they are in combat zones right now. And they're already doing, and yes, I have gone in the woods.
Like a
With a
bear?
group of men?
No bears.
Oh, boy. Teresa.
I understand that we're in an age where women want to be men and they want all their rights. I don't think that the military should be used as a place that you have a career and that's the ultimate goal. I did have a daughter that thought about going in, and she was like, oh, I think I'll go interview. When I told her, the bottom line is you have to kill someone. I'm sick and tired of people thinking, I just don't think women should be so thirsty to have women killing their own young and killing other people. We're different. And as far as protecting ourselves, and women have had to rise to the occasion in wartime on our own land, like say you have a declared war, then everybody get out there and do it. But until then, I just don't think we should be encouraging our women to be killing. We're not killers.
Okay.
What makes you think men are?
Men have been that since the beginning
Donna
of
Sy?
time. Remember Cain?
We women are already equal. It's natural law. It's the government that wants to put the stamp on everything to say, you can do whatever I tell you.
Thank you.
I think this all started.
Could you
when
speak
women
up and
didn't
stand
have-
up, please, Diana?
This all started when women didn't have the right to vote, and then we had wars, and we had to go out into the workforce and fill in for the war effort in the factories and stuff like that. And we're not getting paid equal pay for equal work. And if some of you think that that doesn't happen nowadays, you're wrong, it does. You know, how many of you have been replaced by a man, better pay, or whatever? So, I mean, I know that's happened to me. So, yes, it has. I'm just saying. So, I mean, that's how it started. And one of the reasons why the Equal Rights Amendment didn't pass is when women found out that they would probably be drafted, et cetera, and that's when it started. That's when it died, and only 35 states went to it. So, I don't know.
So,
Just say,
Diana,
What are you afraid
when
of?
you were in the Navy, and let's say you were senior chief, female,
okay.
and the guy desk right across from you is also senior chief, are you telling me that you were not getting paid the same amount of money for that rank?
Now, you get paid by the same amount of rank. You probably don't get the same, you don't get the rank? No, you probably don't get the same, respect. Yeah, there are some people that still treat you as if you should not be there.
Okay. Thank
Or
you.
you're a woman.
Petey?
It's Senator Amanda Chase who said the ERA is employed by the left to eliminate gender. And let's all
Yeah,
face it, this
that's
is
all.
happening right and left. They want to eliminate gender, and as we all should know, if we don't, you take sex out of the equation and society as a rule ends.
Yeah.
Men get up in the morning and go to work and go to war for their family, their wives, their children, for sex. That's all there is to it. Now a man can't even say, you can't even say to someone, you know, you look nice today in the workplace without, bam, facing a lawsuit. So until we get rid of the political correctness,
Yes.
none of this matters. Because you take sex out of the equation, you take gender out of the equation, it's over anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have something, Eric?
No, I just want my service. Well, you know, yeah, I do have something to say. Well, I do have something to say. Oh,
Stand up.
God, Robert. Oh,
And
God.
could you speak up, please?
Okay, hello, everyone. Okay. You know, when people talk about equality, I don't understand where that's coming from, because go to any court in America, go to any child support court in America, who gets the child? The woman. You go to any other thing in the, if there's any lawsuit, who's going to be believed? The woman.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that there's, I think that, and I understand what you're saying, that I was in the military, but I think that the pendulum kind of cancels itself out in one respect. There looks like inequality on this side, but then if you go to this side, it's inequality on this side. So what happens in the midst of everything is, in any kind of legal things, always the laws are geared towards the woman. It is geared towards, and a man has to do more to prove himself in cases of rape. He has to do more to prove himself in the case of trying to get his children. Anything where there's a man versus woman, that law, I mean, the deck's going to be stacked against them.
Yes.
And so what I'm hearing from females is, well, we want respect, we want equal pay, we want this, that, and the other. And I understand all that. I understand all that. But what happens to a man because a woman, and I don't have any children, but I've seen this in my family and other families, where guys go out and then they have children because of a disagreement, because they don't want to be together anymore. This woman takes this child from him, and now you have now created a statistic. What happens then?
Bill Duke, our vice chair.
All right,
Could you stand up, Bill?
okay, I will do. Back when this first was proposed, the Equal Rights Amendment, we had all these same conversations, right, about the implications and all this. And when you look at it, first, why are we doing this again? Somebody's trying to do something here in Virginia, but this will have no effect on the federal government. It will never be a part of the Constitution.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know why we're even going through this, except that it is interesting. But well, we would have, you'd have to start the process over again.
Start with the
Yeah.
American.
So, but the thing that is most interesting in this, and has been all along from the very beginning, is that you look for example at the Civil War Amendment. Was it 13 that made slaves free? Anyone born in naturalized, okay, and anyone born in the United States and under the jurisdiction thereof, okay? So that was 14. Yeah, it was the Civil War Amendment, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
13th and 14th were both Civil War amendments.
Okay, so it was clear at the time what the implications of that amendment would be. Now look where it is. Now all you have to do is come to the border, get across the Rio Grande, have a baby in the United States, and that child is a citizen. It was never intended for that to happen. Never intended. So, this is another vague, poorly, I wouldn't say it's poorly worded. I say it's kind of a vague idea as to what it's intended to do. You're talking about, will women go to war? Will they be drafted? Will we all have to use the same bathroom? Things like that. What's the goal of this amendment? And what will happen downstream, like 20 years from now, 50 years from now?
Create more Democratic voters.
It's odd that we're going through this again 30 years later. So
Thank you. Vernon Fix and then Nora. You have to speak up, Vernon, too, please.
Yeah. Well, I've been listening, and there's one aspect of this I haven't heard, and I have to speak for a third party, which may not be good, but I have in my breakfast every Wednesday a man that was a corporal sergeant and promoted to lieutenant, but he was in Vietnam on the ground. And he didn't talk much about Vietnam, but one day he did talk about what happens when you put a woman in a squad. They go out on jungle patrol, and maybe her boyfriend is in another squad, but he's spending most of his time worried about his girlfriend. And if they're in the same squad, he's not worried about the whole squad, he's trying to save her butt. And they go out in the jungle, and so it lowered the overall effectiveness of the group. And he didn't like women in his squads because they went out there to fight, not to be protective of their girlfriend or whatever. And you can't stop this because it's human nature, right?
You can't stop that if you have a relative, a brother, two
Right.
brothers being in
So
the
that's
service.
just a little aspect of it that I hadn't heard mentioned, so thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. Nora. Hold it.
I'm a big fan of chivalry. I really appreciate everything that men do for us women. And what troubles me, I have 4 brothers, no sisters. I have a lot of guy friends and everything. What troubles me is I think that I think it's sad that a lot of men have the impression that we women do not appreciate all that you do for us. Right. So really, seriously. So, and then another thing to Bill's point, Bill, I think I may have misunderstood you, but did you say that this is a state constitution issue?
No, I said it may
It
be
is a
used
amendment to US Constitution.
to give some ideas to the legislature, but about our own constitution, but in Virginia. But it's clearly
It is a federal, right? I wasn't sure. I thought I
it's
misunderstood, but
expired.
it is.
We have to start over again if we want to pass it.
Well, and that's the thing, and Leslie brought that point up earlier too. The reason it wasn't ratified was because they didn't have, what was it, 2/3 or 3/4 of the states
Right,
that
they
they
came
needed,
close.
and some rescinded later, right? So exactly right, and this should be a moot point, and I challenge anybody to bring up a right that is not already protected in the Constitution.
Okay. Leslie Jones and then Laura.
Bringing that up, Each state has the elective thing to put it in their state constitution, which as a federal government, that's where it belongs anyway. And I believe that it's already in the Virginia State Constitution, therefore it really doesn't need to be a federal law.
And we also have 2 recent graduates from Regent University. Laura, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yes, of course, as a woman, I feel like we should have equal rights, but I feel that we already have those. I have asked many supporters of this what new rights I would gain, and nobody has had an answer. What does concern me, as Bill touched on, is that every law, every rule, every policy has unintended consequences. And part 2 of this concerns me. What I do not see are any new rights. What I do see is a huge opportunity for more legislation, more government oppression, just regulating everything. And as Nora pointed out, this could bleed into private organizations, like churches and organizations, where the government has no right at all to regulate.
Very good point. Ron Axel, retired submariner.
One other side of it that hasn't been brought up yet is, and I can speak about the Navy, and I'm assuming it's similar in the other branches when you're talking about combat service. All of these areas have rotations in and out of hazardous duty. In my case, in the Navy, it was sea duty. So when I joined the Navy, there were no women on ships. So where were those women? They were on shore duty. So that affected my rotation to be able to go to shore duty because the billet wasn't there because a woman had it. Later on, women started coming on ships, but not all the way. But still, I would assume it's the same in the other branches that go to combat, that people rotate in and out of combat zones. They have to rotate out to somewhere. If there's no place to rotate out to because the women are there because they can't go into combat. So you have to look at not only are they going into combat at sea, wherever, how many women are you bringing into the service total to affect that rotation in and out of those areas.
Okay.
I
Teresa?
was gonna say too, as usual, as always, children are left out of the equation. What about the children? Number one. Number two, women are so bureaucratic. I think that's why we have such a bureaucracy now. But if you want to join the service and you have the right to do it and go get the pay that a man has, you're a coward if you say you shouldn't have to go fight. If you want to do the job, that's the bottom line. It has been that way for a man since Cain, and it will always be that way. You can't have the pay and not do the time. And I think women, a lot of women just want the pay and the position, but do they really want to go fight? To me, it's ludicrous. The question is, do we have women in the military or not?
Next, I'd like to call on retired Navy Captain Kenny Golden, whose wife is retired Navy commander, and his daughter, former Navy pilot, jet pilot. So, Kenny, would you please stand up and give us your thoughts on this, please?
How many of you remember the tailhook business in 1991? I was a squadron commanding officer just coming back from Desert Storm in 1991 and commanded a helicopter squadron. And if you remember the young lady that was molested at Tailhook, her name was Paula Coughlin. She and I got into an argument the night before she was molested, and the issue was pregnancy. And that's something we haven't talked about, is pregnancy and how we deal with that. It is a problem for us in the military, and I brought that up. And what I said to her was that if you come into my squadron and I train you up and we're ready to go to sea and go on a deployment, like the deployment we've just gone on, and then you walk into my office 2 or 3 days before we're supposed to go to sea and say, I'm sorry, Skipper, but I'm pregnant, so I can't go. That's a big problem for me, because I said, in her particular case, she was a lieutenant. She would have been something like the quality assurance officer or something like that. I said, that is a big problem for us. But I said, we can work through it. She walked off in a huff, and of course the next night, you know, all that stuff happened. And that happened because leadership was down watching the Four Tops and the Temptations. But since then, what's changed, and I wrote an article in the Naval Helicopter magazine and said, look, what having women serve gives us in the military is the ability to go out and get the best and the best and the brightest without regards to what their gender is. And then we make allowances for pregnancies. Just like, you know, Francie had Tara while she was on active duty. And Tara, my daughter, went to the Naval Academy, graduated in 1998, and flew the E-2C Hawkeye, the radar plane, and served in Iraq and flew 29 missions over Iraq and got an air medal for that. And she's still into this day. She's in the reserves and she's now a veterinarian as well. But we have made the accommodations. We've made most of the right rules, and our young women are serving and doing a terrific job. But to show you how foolish the rules were, when I was commanding officer of the ship, I had a dentist that was leaving. I had an actual dentist. I had 14 dental techs and one dentist and 2 chairs, and my dentist had to leave early. So I said, hey, look, I gotta have a dentist I'm going to see. And I operated on Marines. I had 735 Marines when we deployed. And so I need a dentist. They sent me a gal, and she was absolutely the best officer on the ship and a terrific dentist. They would not let me keep her because she was a woman. And she wanted to stay, to show you how stupid the rules are. Now she's able to serve. There'll be no detriment to the ship, no detriment whatsoever. The only thing that we had to work out, and there's been some abuse of this, is there's been women that have been getting pregnant and getting pregnant and getting pregnant and staying off sea duty. That's wrong, and we need to fix that. But other than that, we've made the accommodations for young women. They've been able to promote. We've got several women flag officers because they've served. And they've served in the areas that they need to serve us. So our young women have allowed us to go out and get that extra pool of the best and brightest, and they've done a good job serving.
Thank you, Kenny. Additional comments? Anybody? We didn't talk about how, even though you have a Geneva Convention, which is, it just doesn't make sense, we haven't even touched on the torture aspect. And if you think men are tortured, were tortured bad in World War II and Vietnam, I suggest you go on YouTube and go to Google, look at some of the photographs, because I know in the Philippines, when the Japanese had invaded the Philippines, they raped so many women over there. It was unbelievable, and killed so many women and tortured them. I'm not saying that women can't take that pain, but you have to think long, hard, and deep about sending your daughter into an area where she may in fact be captured and then raped who knows how many times, and they died. They were raped so many times. So I mean, that's just another not a small aspect, but it's another aspect. We have a lot of folks on here watching right now, but I want to move on to 2 other subjects, but I'll take any closing comments on this. I think the general consensus is this is a bad initiative to bring it back up. We really don't know. We haven't been able to identify who has raised this serpent's ugly head. So until that, I just don't know. Yes.
I believe that it's a backdoor attack on religion. I actually think that is the goal. I think we're all arguing or talking about men and women. I think it's a backdoor to religion, to get inside those churches and destroy them.
Okay. Thank you. Nora?
Yes, and I would just remind everybody that if you'd like, I'll post a link to my radio interviews with former delegate Robert G. Marshall, who talks extensively about why this is something we need to be fighting against. So I'll put the link there.
The
Diane Howard?
Amendment would protect the religious aspect of it. Again, what are you all afraid of? We're all equal.
Yep.
Being precluded by this.
So then Diane Howard is in total opposition to this. Thank you, Diana. We have a newly elected member of school board, Laura Hughes, with us today. But online, I have Victoria Manning, who is bringing up an issue about limited amount of, I guess, unions and access to the school board, the school system, etc. And heretofore, that, like, let's take Virginia Beach, the Virginia Beach Education Association. They're the only ones that really have a open door into the superintendent and the rest of the school system. And it's pretty much because, in my opinion, they're there to do the bidding of the superintendent. So that's a real problem. But there is an initiative at the General Assembly. Would you like to mention this, Laura?
Yes, as you said, the VBEA is the only one who has access in the schools. They get email addresses of staff. They're allowed to put flyers in mailboxes. They are allowed to seek membership within the schools. And there are other educational associations that would maybe give teachers and staff an alternative, maybe another viewpoint. Everybody's bringing something different to the table. And as it stands now, the VBEA wants every other organization blocked and to make sure that they have a monopoly on this. Vicki Manning has written a piece of legislation that Senator Bill DeSteff is sponsoring that would allow other educational organizations equal access, and it would not force teachers to join anything, but it would give them different options that they may not even know exist.
Okay, and Vicki has put a link to the legislation when she just typed in here. So that'll be up on the Facebook page if anybody wants to link to it and get a little bit more information.
Senate Bill 1236.
What is it again, Eric?
Senate Bill 1236.
1236, Senate Bill. Thank you, Eric. So if you want to look at that and see how it's weaving its way, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, was the last day of any new bills that could be entered. And crossovers coming up, so I think it's next week. This is a short session, so this is a 30-day session instead of the 45. So unfortunately, Senator Steff wasn't able to be here this morning. He said he was going to try, but he had another meeting. He could explain that bill and how he feels it's going to go through this Virginia. I'm not sure whether it's going to happen on the House because the House has so many Democrats. Well, same thing on the Senate. And Democrats, in my opinion, are predisposed to support those unions. So while they don't call them a union, it's a teachers association. So
One more time for the number of the.
1236.
okay, there's another piece of legislation that's working its way also, and that's the oil and gas exploration off the coast of Virginia. The city council said that they didn't want any oil or gas exploration off the coast of Virginia. Of course, Virginia only has control of the first 3 miles, and then it becomes part of the federal government. But it's my understanding that any exploration will be around 67 miles out, because even within 3 miles, they're not going to do any drilling or anything. So it's going to be way offshore. I don't think even the line of sight of the horizon, you would even be able to see this. And it's not like we're going to have all 10 or 15, 20 derricks out there drilling. They'll put one platform out there, they'll sink their drills, and they go out horizontally for the exploration of the oil and gas. So, and then if they strike it, then they'll pump it back in. But I think our position should be, and I'll get them to come in here to make a presentation at maybe the first Saturday in February. It should be a national security for us. So we're not held hostage by any other countries, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Russia. I don't care where those natural resources come from, but we never know when we're going to go to war with one of our so-called allies, and we could be put into a very, very bad situation of being held hostage because we don't have enough oil to face a major war. And some of you may not remember, but in World War II, when everything was so limited, people would take the fat off their cooking of their meats, they would pour it into containers, government would collect those because we didn't have enough oil. And that's what they used to lubricate tanks and everything else out there. So there was a lot of stuff that went on during the wars that today's folks just do not remember. Any other comments on that, on the oil and gas exploration? Okay, let's just open the floor up, announcements and any other things. Diana Howard.
There's also a bill by Delegate Knight for the sports and entertainment. It's HB 2368, entitles us to the state and sales tax to pay for bonds and stuff for any sports and entertainment, and it goes for the whole district down there from Bird Neck all the way to the ocean.
Yeah. What was that?
Because entertainment is a form of government.
Yes, how they've determined, and Barry Knight is a Republican, I believe, correct?
Yes.
How
it authorizes the city to make this fund and put any revenue they want.
Yes, and so I think I've looked in the federal Constitution, I've looked in the Virginia Constitution, and it escapes me, so maybe there's some more astute readers of those two documents. I can't find anywhere where it says the government's role is to entertain me. And what they're doing with these bills, they're taking money from me and you by force. By force. Yes. We don't have the option of saying, well, I don't want to do it. So this is patently wrong, just absolutely wrong. They don't do it for shopping centers. They don't do it for like Kroger's. They don't do it for Planet Fitness. They don't do it for RK Chevrolet. They don't do it.
Okay, but I just wanted to point out, if anybody is opposed to these bills, the best place to kill a bill is while it's still in committee, not when it gets to the floor. So find out where the bill is at, what committee it's at, find out who those members are, email them or call them. And lobby day is Monday.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Nora?
To your point, Robert.
Could you speak up a little bit?
To your point, that's again another slippery slope. So so government's job is not to be, doing things for anybody really, other than protecting us. We all know the limited roles, right? But you open it up to, so you say, so they're not doing it for this sect and this sect. Oh, but doesn't that open the door for all of those other sects to start clamoring for the same thing? Well, you gave it to them. Well, you do this for them. I want this. When does it ever end? It is inherently un-American, anti-American to be expanding government power and authority like this. Ridiculous.
Thank you.
They're doing what King George did to the colonists is what's happening.
Yes. I just got a correction in there from Brian Kerwin. Thank you, Brian. He said Crosso is February the 5th. So I was wrong on that one. And I was also wrong. The session is 45 days, not 60. I don't know what I was thinking. There's too much going on in my mind right now. It's it's a short session. Thank you, Brian Kerwin. Tom?
Yeah, we have our 9/12 meeting here, the 28th, Monday the 28th at 6:30. We're going to be doing the economy, Hillsdale Colleges. We're going to be finishing that up. So if you want to get educated, Monday the 28th, right here at 6:30 p.m. That's
First Landing 912 group, and it's Economics 101. It's been a phenomenal course, and so it's just been great. We've gone through the Constitution. We've gone through so many things in these study groups over the years. Okay, closing comments and announcement. Diana Howard, if you...
I have more announcements.
Okay, stand up and speak up, please.
Okay, as many of you know, I'm on the Citizens Transportation Accountability Commission. We recently changed our name to Community Transportation Accountability. Anyway, and that's on the Hampton Roads TPO, Transportation Planning Organization. And we have openings. Every city has members on these citizen groups to discuss legislation and things that we want to do with the transportation money, and we're expanding into the Planning Commission to discuss things that we're doing with that revenue, and that's on stormwater and other issues, right? All your mayors and chairs and board of supervisors, your city managers and stuff like that, go to these meetings, have input on these meetings, and citizens should have input on these meetings as well. That's why they formed this committee. And like I said, Virginia Beach has 7 members, we're short 2. So if you would like to join, you can either get appointed by city council, by your mayor, or you can fill out an application and then they will send it there to be approved by your mayor or your board of supervisors. And almost every city is short a person. So if you're interested in transportation or anything like that, and I also bought the legislative agenda that they just recently put in. The inside here is the PDC's legislative agenda. That's the Planning District Commission, and on the back is the Transportation Planning District Commission. And I have 2 copies of it. I'll pass them around. You can look at them, right? And these are things that you would get your input on that we work on all year long. And we only meet 6 times a year. Well, 4 now. We're going up to 6. So if you'd like to join, you can always see me and I can tell you how to do it.
Okay. Other announcements? James St. John.
We also have ranked choice voting moving through the legislature right now. There's both the House bill and the Senate bill. And if you want to, the Senate privileges and election committees, which has Senators Screwhill, Cosgrove, and DeStep on it, could hear from you in support of those bills as well. That allows people to vote for third parties and have their vote go to another party if for some reason their candidate doesn't win. There's House Bill, House Bill 2097 and Senate Bill 1731. Get some support on those. I would most appreciate it.
What's the purpose of that bill? Just pardon? I said, what's the purpose of that bill?
Ranked choice voting. It allows for study programs in localities. It doesn't mandate anything. All it does is allow localities in Virginia to implement ranked choice voting. It's what they've done up in Maine right now, where you rank all the candidates on the ballot, first, second, third choice. And if your first choice candidate is the lowest bidder, they'll remove those votes and reassign your vote to the next candidate on the list. That way each candidate's going until we get a majority candidate winning. Yep.
So we won't find out the results to any
Actually,
elections.
you vote all on election day, so all your results are already in. You don't have to go back to the polls and redo it again.
No, I know
Election
that,
again,
but,
so.
but
The elections
tally the results.
If the bottom guy doesn't have to give the top guy.
Then your vote goes to the next person you choose. Right. Your vote's not just dropped off.
Okay, so John Moss doesn't win, we gotta give it to Diallo. That's what it said.
If you vote for John Moss and he gets the lowest number of votes, your vote would go to the next person you choose.
So you rank your vote.
Your vote doesn't go away. It goes to the next candidate if you don't get one. So the candidate will have 51% of the vote.
So if there are 2 candidates, doesn't matter.
It will
but if
break
there are
down
5,
eventually
it does.
2-2.
So you rank your vote.
Yes.
Diana Howard.
Okay, and our next Virginia Beach Tea Party meeting is the first Thursday of the month. We switched from Wednesday, we are now the first Thursday of the month. I believe that's February 7th. And we had to reschedule our last speaker for our February meeting, which would be the city auditor, Linda Remus, who was doing the audit on the Virginia Beach Development Authority, which he was unable to attend the last meeting, was called out of town. And we are now at Marion Manor on Marion Lane in Virginia Beach, and that is at 7 o'clock at night.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the first
Thursday.
The first Thursday, which you believe to be the 7th.
I believe it's the 7th.
First Thursday.
Laura Hughes.
February 12th, VB Spark, which is one of those educational associations we'd like to have access, will be meeting at Great Neck Library at 6 p.m. and we will have the Optimist Club, which is a group that works with at-risk youth, addressing us.
Okay. and that you'll send me all the stuff. We'll get it mailed out to everybody.
I will send it to you.
Okay. Update on John Moss. John was released from the hospital on Thursday, and they gave him clearance to go back to work on this Tuesday because Monday is a holiday, and that is still up in the air. But he sends out, I think he sent out to everybody, he's posted on his Facebook page, all the wonderful comments that he said to each and every one of you, thanking you for your concerns and your prayers and all that for his recent sickness. And this flu bug has gone everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable. So if any of your family members or such are suffering right now, please let us know. We'll put them in your prayers. And Laura, did you have something? Oh, okay. So any other comments? Nothing? We'll go ahead and close the meeting out. We normally do it at the beginning of the meeting, but I failed to do this. We always like to put a face with a name. So if you just go around the room and tell us who you are and where you're from.
Donna Sy from Portsmouth, and freedom of speech is on, court case is on February the 13th at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
In Portsmouth. In Portsmouth.
Kenny Golden, Virginia Beach.
Vernon Fix in Virginia Beach.
James.
How you doing, James St. John, Secretary of the Tidewater Libertarian Party?
Norfolk?
Yes, sir.
You're Norfolk. Okay.
Nora Firestone, Virginia Beach.
Teresa Langell, Virginia Beach, membership chair for Virginia Beach Tea Party. If anybody wants to join, text me or email me.
Diana Howard, Chair of the Virginia Beach Tea Party.
Klaus. Introduce yourself.
I'm Klaus Chernoff.
Thank you.
It's me.
He comes to all the meetings, a retired naval officer, correct?
Enlisted.
Huh?
Enlisted, retired.
Enlisted, retired, okay.
Dave Brochus, Virginia Beach.
Tom Bailey, organizer for 912.
Eric Ray, Virginia Beach.
I thought you were.
Eric Ray, Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach, okay, thank you.
Virginia Beach.
Travis Harding, Virginia Beach.
Ron Axel, Virginia Beach.
Laura Hughes, Virginia Beach School Board.
Lisa Keyser, Chesapeake.
Dr. Joseph Smith, President, Pembroke Manor Civic League, Virginia Beach.
Leslie Jones, Virginia Dare Soil and Water Conservation Director.
Petey Browder, visitor.
You gonna introduce yourself?
Your vice chair, Judy.
Oh!
Judy. You forgot Judy too.
So I'm Bill Duke, and I am the vice chair of this Tidewater Libertarian Party.
And
in charge of vice.
And speaking of vice, Judith McNeil back here hiding in the corner.
Just because I'm from Boston doesn't mean I'm full of vice.
Yes.
Advice, yes, but.
Yes, and a Patriots fan. So.
And who are you?
Oh, my name's Robert Dean. I currently serve as chairman of the Tidewater Libertarian. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And I think what we're going to do, we'll go ahead and do the offshore drilling program for February. Does that sound good to everybody?
Pretty good.
Wonderful. So that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, go out and go forth. Yes. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the question. All those in favor, say aye. This is the end of the transmission from the Providence Square Grill in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Hello, everybody, and goodbye. Have a great weekend. Bye.